One of the things that I enjoy watching on the internet.com, because I don't watch any of these news stations on cable TV, is infighting amongst the left wing. Who doesn't enjoy a good back and forth between your political opposition, going after each other, attacking each other, and of course, them doing this based on the identity politics that they wield against our side constantly. And a perfect example of this is actually the dispute between MSNBC and CNN. And this dispute is represented by Mehdi Hassan Show versus Jake Tapper Show. And it all revolves around Nikki Haley, who recently announced that she was running for president. Now, to be clear, not a huge fan of Nikki Haley, not somebody who's going to be jumping in and supporting her presidential run. I think one of the reasons why CNN is even tacitly defending Nikki Haley is because she has absolutely no real chance at the Republican nomination, but she declared that she's running for president, and since she is the only person who is declared to be running against Trump, therefore they're going to try to prop her up because they don't like the orange man. And by the way, to be clear, my not liking or not being a huge fan of Nikki Haley has absolutely nothing to do with her running against Trump. I can't stand these people on the Republican side who think that Trump is entitled to an unchallenged path to the Republican nomination, because obviously we should have learned from 2016 with Hillary Clinton that clearing the field for the heir apparent to the nomination doesn't actually work out that well for you in the actual general election. So I'm all for all of these candidates jumping into the race. I'm all for a primary battle. I think that strengthens whoever the eventual candidate is, not weakens them. And the idea that Nikki Haley somehow owes something to Donald Trump because he appointed her to a position in his administration is ridiculous and absurd. That being said, let's get into this clip, but also thank you to the people who signed up over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join. I appreciate your support. No sponsor. Let's roll into the clip.
About something else. The New York Times opinion writer Waj Ali made some very critical comments yesterday, I think, about, or maybe it was Sunday, about Governor Nikki Haley, who's now running for president. Take a look.
She uses her brown skin as a weapon against poor black folks and poor brown folks, and she uses her brown skin to launder white supremacist talking points. And the reason why I feel sad, because no matter what she does, Mehdi, it'll never be enough. They'll never love her.
So let's talk about a few things related to Nikki Haley. So first and foremost, she is of Indian heritage, but in no way, shape, or form, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, does Nikki Haley have brown skin. Maybe, supposedly, allegedly, she's using her Indian identity to do these things. Maybe that's the point you want to make. But honestly, if not for people reminding me that she is of Indian descent, I would not know it. Nikki Haley is actually successful on her own, and this has very little to do with the fact, either for or against her, that she's some Indian American. On top of that, I think it's incredibly important to point out how dishonest this New York Times editor actually is. If you'll remember, there was a shooting at a historically black church in the state of South Carolina, and Nikki Haley, in response to that, actually took down the Confederate battle flag from the state capitol, among other things, to combat against the ideology that the shooter actually had. Now, people said that this was symbolic, this was giving into the left wing and all of that, but the idea that Nikki Haley is somebody who is laundering the reputation of white supremacists is just not true.
She uses her brown skin as a weapon against poor black folks and poor brown folks, and she uses her brown skin to launder white supremacist talking points. And the reason why I feel sad, because no matter what she does, Mehdi, it'll never be enough. They'll never love her.
But that's the thing, they know this is not true. This guy works for the New York Times. He knows that story related to Nikki Haley when she was the governor of South Carolina. In fact, everyone knows this who's actually invested in politics and knows about Nikki Haley's history. But what his actual issue is that Nikki Haley dares to defy the intersectional coalition dream that's supposed to put Democrats in power in perpetuity by being a Republican. So what he's actually angry about is the fact that this person of Indian descent disagrees with him politically because, like many people in the elite on the left wing, the journalist class, the media class, they don't think minorities have the right to choose which party they're aligned with. They are natural-born Democrats, and they need to stay that way. And that's the overall issue. and ironically, one of the nastiest things that you can actually say about a group of people. Essentially, they denied them agency, and that's what's going on. That is the only way you can look at Nikki Haley's reputation of actually giving in on certain racial issues after big instances like that shooting and say that all she does is whitewash or brownwash white supremacist talking points. There is no backing to this.
They'll never love her. Immediately, obviously, Haley has jumped on this as, look, liberals are attacking me again. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I think that that's a gift to Haley's nascent campaign for her to be able to jump on these, dumb remarks by a pundit that just play into her hands and say, look, they're going after me based on my race. They can't handle my ideas. They can't handle the fact that I'm a skilled politician.
Now, I do agree with this CNN panel, but like I said, the only reason they're having this panel and not doing this, because let's be honest, during the Trump administration, CNN leaned in heavily to calling everything Republican white supremacists, is because of the reasons I talked about earlier. But I also want to point out that it is a bit ridiculous, and I've said this time and time again, for Asians, specifically Indian Americans, to talk about white supremacy and being held down by American society. If you look at CEOs, specifically in the tech sector, but overall in the United States of America, of top Fortune 500 companies, they're disproportionately Indian. If you look at the number one income earning demographic in the United States, in Britain, in Canada, it is people of Indian descent. If you look at overall earnings and you average it out, Asian women, which Nikki Haley would qualify under, out-earn white men in this country. So the idea that Indians in particular have this list of grievances against this country and they need to be anti-American and call everything white supremacy because they're supposedly being held down is absolutely absurd and ridiculous. If you remember, one of the big civil rights struggles in the last couple of years, and yes, I use that term sarcastically, was a bunch of spoiled brat Indian actors doing a movie for True TV about how Apu, the character on The Simpsons, was actually a dramatic problem in the United States of America for Indians because, oh my god, this guy, this voice actor who's elite at his class in terms of voice acting, is voicing this Indian character, and some people think that that's some negative stereotypes for Indians. Oh my god, shouldn't we be worried about Apu? All of the problems that Indian Americans face, and again, not all, obviously, some are worse off and some are better off, we all understand that, are minuscule in comparison to other demographics in the United States of America because they're quite literally the top income earning demographic in this country. And by the way, they earned it. And also, if India ever got their act together, if they ever freed up their economy, if they ever stopped with these ridiculous anti-British, because when they left the British, they went more in the direction of the Soviet Union in terms of policy, kind of policies in their country, they would outpace China immediately because one of the advantages that Indians have in their country is that they're one of the largest English-speaking populations, and that is a huge language of international business. So if they ever embraced English common law, they would be successful on the world stage, a global power, and the next great nation to lift all those people out of poverty. They're doing this quite slowly right now, but it would be way better if they actually embraced English common law and private property rights.
I'm with Ramesh. Yeah, I think the fact that she got to be the governor of South Carolina with brown skin is a very impressive accomplishment, and I don't think it's something people ought to be attacking or ridiculing her about. Let's just take her based on her ideas. And I might not like them as a Democrat. Republicans might, but I think it's a terrible thing to say about her.
Now, again, this is a CNN panel, so of course it's going to be very generic commentary, but it is quite interesting that one of the major news outlets in this country, MSNBC, is so racist, so anti-white, so over the top, that this kind of commentary from CNN actually becomes praiseworthy. I mean, if you think about the people that work over at MSNBC, it's kind of absurd. You have Joy Reid, who is incredibly anti-white, hates white people, does segments that are anti-white. I think Tucker Carlson labeled her accurately, by the way, Hutu Radio, for how many segments that she does. And she's not the only one. Mehdi Hassan, again, very anti-white, despite the fact, of course, that he's of South Asian origin, and we just talked about how successful they are. But they also employ Simone Sanders, who very famously, when a mentally ill Trump supporter was kidnapped by 4 people who were shouting Black Lives Matter as they cut into this person's person's scalp, did a video on this really disgusting story, got mad that people were saying that these people who were yelling racial slurs and attacking this mentally ill person were guilty of a hate crime, because how dare you say a white person could be victimized by a hate crime? By the way, if you ever wondered what happened to that case, a lot of those people got very reduced charges, and most of them are out right now. Some of them didn't even serve a full year of jail time.
One of the things that's odd also is you see some, I don't want to make too big a deal out of it, but you see some people on the left noting that Nikki is not her original first name. I think it's her middle name. Right. And like basically suggesting that she, I mean, it's not true. And these are the same people who objected to whenever Republicans would say Barack Hussein Obama. I mean, there is a very ugly side of the left that comes out when Nikki Haley runs for office.
Look, this is true. Nikki Haley has some other more ethnic sounding first name, but since she was a child, she was often referred to as Nikki, and the left are basically saying, while she's using her brown skin and Indian identity to shield from white supremacy, that she's also hiding from it by calling herself Nikki Haley, because the evil white supremacist would never vote for her, which again, doesn't make sense, but it is the ugliness that does come out when she's running for office. I remember people started spreading rumors that she slept her way to the top to get to the position where she could run for governor during her first run for office, and she had to do this really awkward campaign ad where she featured her husband with her, and I think she looked directly into the camera and said, "I'm Nikki Haley, and this is my husband." Like, that's how vicious the attack was, because the Democratic Party does not like when women or minorities, or both, run and represent Republicans in these areas. And it's this weird, like, conspiratorial thinking, largely due to the fact that they use minorities as tokens, so they assume that everybody only sees minorities as tokens, where they make the case that Republicans must be running somebody like Nikki Haley, and the voters who are secretly evil white racists must be voting for her so that she can institute the evil white racism, but then they'll have cover because they voted for somebody who's not technically a white person.
No, I think that's true. And I also think that this is something that I know her campaign has thought a lot about. As you're launching a presidential campaign, they've expected some of these attacks. But I will say, overall, she's leaned in to some of the messaging that has been surrounding her in the past week since announcing that she was running for president. And really, it's an extra media cycle, news cycle over and over again, where she can seize on, look at what the left's doing, look at what liberals are trying to make me out to be, and use it to her advantage. And I actually think they've tried to play it smart with some of these attacks and turn them into something that they can use to further boost her among the right and with her base.
In-kind contributions for the Haley campaign.
Now, I actually completely agree with this last statement. This is one of the best things that could have happened to the Nikki Haley campaign, because a lot of Republicans like to rally around people who are being attacked by those on the left wing, and MSNBC essentially gave a jolt, a boost to her campaign that she otherwise wouldn't have gotten, because she's entered the race so early that we don't expect anything from her, and she's running against Trump, who, let's be honest, sucks all of the attention out of the room. But yeah, this definitely does aid her campaign. It keeps her in the media. And by the way, it kind of cuts to the core that we need to talk about, which is Nikki Haley is being like slightly defended by CNN because it was so nasty what MSNBC did. But let's be clear, all of these people on CNN would immediately turn around and start repeating those very same attacks against Nikki Haley if she actually got the Republican nomination. The thing is that you need to realize, and I think this is something that got overlooked by Trump because he draws so much attention, or was overlooked while Trump was in office, is that their issue isn't necessarily with your candidates. They'll hang out with them, they'll talk to them at cocktail parties. Remember, Trump was well loved by the left wing. He had a show on ABC or NBC, who cares, it was called The Apprentice, and all of these people got along with him. He was invited to the Clinton wedding, or the Clintons attended his wedding, actually, to be more accurate. And that's because fundamentally their issue is you, the Republican voter. Whatever candidate you put up will immediately become an evil white racist, a monster, and all that. John McCain was defended before he was the Republican nominee, after he was the Republican nominee, but when he was running against Obama, evil white racist. Mitt Romney is being propped up almost exclusively by the mainstream media, but guess what? When Mitt Romney was the Republican nominee, evil white racist who dressed up like a state trooper and kidnapped women, according to the mainstream media, not to mention he tortured dogs. Donald Trump, somebody who is beloved by the left wing, he was on TV all the time, going to these celebrity parties and all of that. And guess what? As soon as he wins the nomination, as soon as he runs for president, evil white racist, we need to stop him. Wow, white supremacy is running amok over this country. This is what they do. This is one of the reasons why they praised George W. Bush when they hated him throughout his time. Anytime you put up somebody, they're going to attack him, they're going to hate him. So if you see anything about soft coverage for this candidate or that candidate, you need to understand that all of that is just temporary until that person gets into a position to win. There's a reason why they attack Ron DeSantis mercilessly, is because DeSantis, unlike Nikki Haley, actually has a shot at this point in time at the nomination. Nikki Haley is perceived to have no chance, so she gets some token defense from CNN, who's trying to revamp now that they've ousted a lot of people from the Trump era and trying to differentiate themselves from MSNBC. MSNBC just went full in on the anti-white racism nonsense, so they don't understand the subtleties that are going on with the rest of the media. So never forget that this is always about you, not about any particular candidate. And let me know what you think about that down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about MSNBC attacking and CNN defending Nikki Haley. Till next time.